Welcome to the webinar, Bridging the Gap of Digital Dentures. It is being presented by Gene Peterson, MS CDT, and we're really excited for him to present this evening. And now it is my distinct honor to recognize Gene Peterson, MS CDT. He's the Director of Technical Development and Learning at Sterngold. With over 35 years of experience, Gene has an extensive and diverse background in the dental industry, including R&D, clinical and dental laboratory workflows, production, and management. After owning and operating a full-service dental laboratory for over 18 years, he spent almost a decade with a leading digital denture and technology company. A pioneer and subject matter expert in digital dentures, Gene has written and co-authored research and white papers on this and other technical subjects. And now I get to say, take it away, Gene.
Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate that. Thanks for that wonderful introduction and that great, man, this is awesome. I mean, this is a great webinar start. I love it's very thorough. I feel like I'm completely taken care of. So I'm excited to get going. It's good to be here. I appreciate the invitation to be with you tonight. This is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. It's my wheelhouse, I feel. If everybody's got a wheelhouse in life, at least they should. Mine is digital dentures. I'm a technician by trade. I was trained early on in the early 90s by some very distinguished and recognized clinicians in the industry whom I'm very proud of. And a lot of that rubbed off on me. And so I continued that interest in R&D and research and digital throughout my career. And so I got involved with digital very early. In fact, in 1991, actually, I was part of the team that evaluated the first CEREC machine in America, and we did the beta testing on that. So that kind of ages me, but I was very young then. So for the record, I was very young then. I'm not very old now, but I'm old enough. But it's been a long, fun career, and I've been able to mix that with my dental technology background and contribute to the industry and work alongside a lot of folks developing new technology, softwares, workflows, and it's been a lot of fun. So tonight we're going to share. I'm going to share with you my understanding of digital dentures, why I think it's a great thing to be talking about. It is really something that's at the tip of the sword right now. It's been really the topic of discussion for about since 2011, 2012. It's been a subject of serious discussion. More recently, it's really on fire, and the materials and the softwares have been changing so rapidly that anybody wanting to get into digital dentures needs to really keep up with that, and that's a challenge because it's changing so fast. So tonight we're going to talk about really how to bridge what we've learned in the past, what we know about dentures, complete dentures, apply it to the digital denture world, because after you think about it, it's really not that different. I think you're going to see the commonalities and the crossover and appreciate what what it can offer, because it's not for everybody. It's a technology, especially if you look at the denturist world, the technology, the technician world. A lot of the old folks, a lot of the gentry want to kind of keep to their techniques because they know how to do those. But really, they need to be able to apply those sound principles into the new technology and be able to apply it moving forward, because in the future, this is where it's going to go. And we're going to talk about that, especially about the materials. This is where it's going, and it's really on its way. So with that said, let's talk about a few statistics. And I like to talk about these statistics, do a lot of lectures on overdentures and just the excitement about dentures. And I'm really I appreciate you're here tonight, because it really makes me think that you're interested in dentures, because the level of interest coming out of dental school now is a lot lower, not because of any person coming out of dental school. It's just that just not taught as much. It's not such a focus, as it was, say, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, when it was the state of the art technology. Now there's so many more digital techniques. Some students aren't really required to learn as many dentures, required to do as many dentures as they were 30 years ago to graduate. So when we teach an implant class, we're the first question we ask, and they're there to learn all on four. How many dentures do you know? Have you done? I mean, what do you know about denture occlusion? and I just get deer in the headlight looks. And it's like, my gosh, did I really have to remember all that? Well, it's very much important when you're in the implant world now that we understand digital or dentures, complete dentures and the principles. And the same thing applies to digital dentures. So if we're a digital office, if we're digitally minded, we're going to obviously think about what digital dentures has to offer, because everything else has pretty much been digitized in dentistry, and we're going to talk about that. But first, I'd like to talk about the number of patients, because the opportunity for denture um, production is huge. I mean, this is as of 2024. These are the latest numbers. About 42.5 million denture patients in the United States. That's about 19%. And that number is pretty consistent worldwide, even though some countries have a lot higher percentage. That's about 10,000 baby boomers a day coming on. Whoops, excuse me there. Coming on that are going to require some type of edentulous treatment. Um, you have the age groups. 3% are age 18 to 34, 35 to 44, 16%, 45 to 55, 29%, and patients that are getting a little bit older, 51%. And then you get the higher age folks, 57 to 60%. And then men versus women, it is higher in women than it is men. So to think about those numbers and the number of patients that are available is astounding. And to think that it's not a profitable prospect for a practice is really a little naive, in my opinion. You may not like doing dentures. You may have to send them down the road because you don't feel comfortable doing them. But just let me tell you, if you can just embrace some of the principles, go back and get some of that fundamental information you need, or to be reminded of what you learned at one point, and just do a few, you're going to be a lot better off, because it is a source of production that's very, very lucrative possibility for your practice. So 34% of these folks are unhappy with their dentures, okay? And 90% of them are unhappy with their lower dentures. I mean, you get to do a low denture on a person, and they usually take it home and they put it in the drawer because it doesn't fit well. There's no retention. So what do we do about that? Well, I do a series of lectures on overdentures. I think every patient that has a lower denture should be stabilized by a couple of implants, and that's the standard of care for the ADA. Just to think about that, that's another topic for another day. But of those patients, 63% of them keep it secret that they have dentures just from the public, from everybody. I mean, we would never know. 32% of those people keep it secret from their friends. 10% keep it secret from siblings. And believe it or not, 7% of denture wearers keep it secret from their spouse and their partners. That's a head scratcher there, but it is a true statistic. So why is that? Because the idea of a denture, losing all your teeth and being a dentulous, can be very traumatic. It's very emotional. It's a psychological thing for a patient. So you add up all the things that have to deal with dentures, and the negativity, the fit, due to poor craftsmanship, poor impressions, poor records. It can be a pretty bad experience. So we have to do everything we can do to improve the quality of life of the patients, and do the best job we can. And one way to do that is through the digital means. Now, does that mean it's a magic kit where you snap the fingers and the digital denture is going to be the perfect denture? No, you still need to apply the principles, which we're going to discuss. But everything is really going digital. And if you think about where we were, let's say 35, 40 years ago, when we were just starting to get into the digital world, what was left out there? The whole horizon was left in dentistry to go digital. Now pretty much everything's digital. The last bastion was, how are we going to change dentures? How are we going to change the denture world? Well, that started happening back around 2000, 2010, 2012. So why do we even worry about going digital, since it's such a popular thing? Well, digital, we know, can streamline workflows. It improves accuracy, repeatability, predictability. Those are the words you like in your practice. Efficiency, because less chair time. Those are important things. So what is our goal? We want to make things faster, easier, and more affordable. Yeah. So is this possible with digital dentures? Maybe. It depends on how we do it, but it really definitely can be. All right. So the digital revolution really is changing fast. It's evolving. It's here, and we have to accept it. And trying to keep up with it may be the challenge, because there's so much going on. There's so many material changes. There's so many software changes, and we're here tonight to just try to get a little bit of a headway on that. So the digital revolution, Um, thinking about it, what are we going to learn tonight? We're going to learn where did digital dentures come from. We're going to learn about today's digital denture. As of the denturist meeting we had all the latest technologies there a couple of weeks ago in Las Vegas. I'm going to try to keep you up to speed on what's new. Transition from conventional to digital. We're going to talk about what you can bring across that bridge of your knowledge to the digital world. We're going to talk about the digital denture workflow. We're going to talk about how to ensure success. It's all about the records, in my opinion. Communication, the digital setup, the current state of software. Where are we at with the materials? Where are we at with the equipment? Okay, and then hopefully by the end of this, the next 45 minutes, you're gonna feel a little bit more comfortable about maybe jumping into that digital denture game. So how did the digital denture revolution start? There's several articles that talk about the history of digital dentures. And if we go back to 1994, Mayada et al., they proposed the idea of fabricating a complete denture via CAD CAM. And it wasn't really until Dr. Goodacre, Charles Goodacre, one of my mentors, uh, set out with some folks, Steve Schmidt from Texas, to really apply the principles of can we digitally place teeth in an acrylic base. Okay, and they did the proof of concept, and they came up with some solutions through stereolithography where you could actually design a tooth setup and put that setup digitally, represented digitally, into a base. And they did that, and they came up with kind of the first digital denture. It's very crude, but again, it was proof of concept. Can we do this? And they showed that we could. And so this was probably 2009, 10, 11. In 2011, late 2011, in Scottsdale at the ACP meeting in Arizona, two companies were going to present. They didn't know, neither company knew the other was going to present a digital denture. But what happened was, two companies, Avident and Dentka, came on, and they both gave presentations, and they both claimed that, hey, we're here with digital dentures. Now, there's still an ongoing debate on who was first to market with digital dentures, and I think both of them arguably have a right to that claim. But at any rate, this was the beginning of the digital denture era. I mean, we hadn't heard of it since before then, really. This was kind of the final frontier to digitize in a major area of dentistry. So the race begins. And you think about where it is today and all the companies that are represented in the digital denture world, it's astounding. And how fast they came on. They came on very, very rapidly. Within about 3 years, you had companies like Ivoclar and Kulzer coming out with their digital dentures, and all of a sudden, everybody else wanted to get on the game, the bandwagon. And it now, with Stratus is coming on with their latest technologies, and the jet printing, it's come so far in just this many years, that it's such an exciting thing. And so as an industry, it's really hard to keep up with. So today's digital denture, what defines a digital denture? Is it the software? Is it the equipment? Again, we have all these companies out there. I mean, you think about these companies and you may have some of them, Exocad, 3Shape. Some of these companies are the software programs that do everything, or are just limited to digital dentures, and they're all good and they all work in different ways. But do they get to the same goal? Well, then we consider, is it the materials or is it the workflow? So is it milled? Is it milled and bonded? Is it monolithic? We're going to hear about that word tonight. And printed. Is it milled and printed? Is it printed and printed? I'm talking about teeth, base. Is it monolithic? Is it a one-piece denture? Well, we're going to talk about that. What is a good digital denture? And I'm going to give you my opinion. Again, this is my opinion from what I know in the industry, and I think opinions are worth what they are, but I think it'll help you understand where we are. So, what are the advantages of digital dentures? So, they're efficient, it's accurate, it's very repeatable. You get the whole story of you get the the permanent digital record. It's a big deal. One of the first cases I did. So my background started with Avident. I was one of the original, not the founding partners, but I was an early partner of that company, developing many of their processes, and proud to have done that. It was a great experience. But one of the first cases we did with my mother. In fact, she grew up in Appalachia in rural Kentucky. She was a dentalist by the time she was 38 years old, and she wore dentures her whole life. And so, another one of my mentors that I worked for early in my career was Gordon Christensen. And so I called Gordon up and I said, "We got to do a digital denture on my mom." And we did it. We did it in 2 visits, and that was kind of a. He says you're never going to do a denture in 2 visits, but we did. We went over there. We went up one weekend and we made impressions, and we came back the next week and we delivered the denture to her. So she wore it for about 3 or 4 years. She was elderly, and so she fell down the stairs as a lot of folks do when they get old. And she had an ambulance come and pick her up. And guess what? She lost her denture in the ambulance. And she called me up. Well, I was there actually. She called me up after I had gone home from seeing her, and she goes, "Son, I lost my denture in the ambulance, or they lost my denture." And I said, "Well, Mom, that's not a problem. I can get you another denture." So in about 2 days' time, I had another denture shipped to me, and had it in her mouth. So it's a great thing. The permanent digital record is a great thing. So it's very repeatable, it's predictable, and it's scalable. Depending on how you do this. Now there are ways there are some workflows that prevent the scalability of digital dentures, but for the most part, it's very efficient, and you can make it scalable for yourself. Um, And is it affordable? Well, I'm going to leave that one for your decision, because depending on what equipment you currently have, it could be really inexpensive to get into digital dentures. And are we talking about making a final digital denture? Maybe. Are we talking about making something temporary? Maybe. Both possibilities? Yeah, I think both of those are options. So the affordability question is definitely there, especially if you're making multiple dentures for somebody, which I highly recommend, or maybe a temporary denture, or you're doing an immediate denture, something that needs to be done, or a conversion denture for an all-on-4. These are all opportunities to have an affordable solution. All right, there are some disadvantages. Obviously, there's a learning curve with the software. Some software programs more than others. Making the transition personally, it might be a challenge. It might be a challenge to the business model. It might not fit into what you're trying to do. Time proven workflows. Dentures have been designed and made and fabricated the same way for 100 years, and you're going to tell that seasoned denture technician that you're never going to change their ways. Well, I can tell you, you can change leopard spots. Um, in the early days of Avident, we hit hard to try to win over the denturists in Canada. And we went up there, and they were very staunch in their thinking, and saying, "There's no way that you're going to make a digital denture better than I can make it with my hands." And that's kind of what the technician said too. Well, there's some truth to that, because a digital denture is still a digital denture, and hand craftsmanship is hard to replace. But if you're willing to accept certain differences in the manufacturing, that you're still going to get a good final denture. But you're not going to change their way of thinking. But guess what? That was 2012. Last 2 weekends ago, I was in Las Vegas as a guest speaker, speaking about digital dentures and overdentures, and over half of the lectures at their national conference for the National Denturist Association was on digital dentures, believe it or not. So yeah, people can change, and they're interested in it now. So I challenge everybody who thinks that they can only do it one way to think out of the box. The material deficiencies, materials are getting better every day, and it's a challenge to understand which is best, because you got people throwing new liquids at you, new machines, new printers, and it's like, what do I do? What do I choose? Well, in the early days of digital dentures, the materials were very deficient and they broke a lot. They were brittle, but now the materials are becoming very high impact. They're very resilient, and we're going to talk about that. So material deficiencies, the deficiencies can be a problem, and the technologies. Is it worth the price? The return of investment. Um, is it worth it to the patient? Should we do it? Should we make that Should we try to convince a patient to go to a digital denture? That's another question. Is it for everyone? Okay, so let's talk about, do I mill or do I print? Do I print? Do I mill? That's kind of a question. Which system do I use? Because there are a lot of choices out there. As I keep mentioning, there are a lot of choices. And it might be confusing, but by the end of this conversation, hopefully helping you make a better decision, it'll kind of narrow your choices down so you can have more of this type of a look, looking down a straight road where it's a little less confusing. So, what am I trying to accomplish? Does this work for me? Is the change too hard? Is the transition from conventional to digital too difficult? What am I leaving behind? Do I have to make any changes? Okay. That's something that this whole idea from going conventional to digital, this bridge, okay, is something that's very doable. And let me explain why. So, the digital workflow looks like this. And you're going to say, well, this doesn't look much different than what I used to do. Okay. So, your digital workflow, you've got the systems, you have the records, the CAD CAM. What's much different? Okay. If you substitute for 3 and 4, the manufacturing, well, I still have the workflow, I've got my records, and then I have to manufacture. So not much has changed, but the materials are different. Okay. The conventional process looks like a custom impression. You got a final tray or a final custom tray. Doesn't matter how the impressions come in. You could do alginate, you could polysulfide, polyether impressions, alginate. I don't really care how the impressions are made, and I didn't as a technician. I just wanted to have an accurate impression, and different clinicians had different degrees of excellence with different materials. Where I could get one clinician that could make the perfect impression with an alginate impression, where he couldn't use PVS to save his life, or another doctor, she wasn't able to use, or she didn't like polyether, but the other doctor could make it sing. So it doesn't matter as long as it is an accurate impression, that it's properly border molded, that it communicates the information that I need to make a denture. Okay, that can be transferred into a model. So a final impression, you pour up some models, you have the issue of shrinkage, stone quality. Again, you create variables, or you introduce variables in this situation, and at the end of the project, you may be 10 variables into this, which has caused change, and then you're way off. And that's the problem with dentures. You have a set of wax rims, you set those wax rims up with teeth, you try those in, you maybe have 1 or 2 rounds of fixing or less, depending on how good your process is. You manufacture those, you flask them, you press pack them, you inject them, whatever you're going to do, and you have a final denture. So that results in about 5 to 8 appointments. I lived my whole life and built my career on that, bouncing around to dental offices, picking up try-ins, dropping off, whatever, and then that's just how it was. So digital is very similar, but we still start with impression. That can start with a final impression, or it can start as a scanned impression. Again, it's about the information as long as it's correct. We could start with a scanned model. You have that doctor who really knows how to make good alginate impressions and can pour that up. Let's scan the model all day long. The message tonight is, I'm not going to try to push you into one technique. I say, and I've done thousands and thousands of cases, I say, do what you do best and give us the best form of the information you can, and we'll make a digital denture out of it. There is a system that can accommodate you. Okay. That's the message tonight. So you're going to scan that record. You're going to digitize it. You're going to design a case. You're going to have maybe a try-in. You've got a Wagner try-in that Steve Wagner, a friend of mine, designed. And if you want a third appointment, you can. It's not necessary. You can get somebody over the hump where they do 5 or 10 cases and they're saying, I don't really need that second appointment, that third appointment anymore. I can do a 2 appointment denture. Because when we first set out to do this, we were thinking about a digital workflow that was like a crown and bridge appointment. You have the patient in, prep the crown, make an impression, bring it back, deliver it. That was the idea. Now it's a little bit altruistic, and you've got a patient that has to worry about a perfect setup, which I get. Okay, so if you want to try in, you can do that, definitely. But you go to manufacturer, you either print it, you mill it, and you have a final denture. So this isn't too much different than the conventional workflow, but it works out to be 2 to 3 appointments. So what are the different systems that we can do that in? Well, you have the systems that are you have the exocads and the 3Shapes, which are systems that are used in multiple dental arenas. All right. And then you have systems that are more dedicated or closed to denture type scenarios. For example, Serona, it's a closed system. Then you have the Dencas, the Baltic denture systems, the Blue Sky Bios, the Dental Wings, and now exocad for the record, Amon Gerbach. You have these that are they have dedicated modules for digital denture design. And the biggest difference in these is the ones on the left. Basically, you have to understand. To be honest, I love exocad. I love 3Shape. They're great programs. I use them both. They have great digital denture design softwares or programs or modules to them. But you still need to know those softwares. Where you can jump into, say, the Dentka or the BDS, the Baltic Denture, or say Blue Sky Bio, and just have a dedicated software to digital dentures where you're not worried about everything else. It directs you through the design, and it's a little more convenient. And I've developed both. Okay, so I've helped develop both of these types of systems, and I personally like the dedicated systems better because that's all you have to worry about. And I believe that a lot more of and this isn't so much as it used to be 10 years ago, because now there's fairly decent parity between the softwares, but still, I like the dedicated softwares more. Then you have out here on their far right, you've got the Avidents, and they're the ones that are proprietary. You send them the records, they design the case, they send you a preview, and you design your digital denture. Probably the most powerful software on the market, I believe, is the Evident software. It's beautiful software, but it's contained within with their organization. You have to send it to them. So those are your choices. So how do I ensure success with a digital denture? It's all about the records at the end of the day. And you've heard the term, the garbage in, garbage out, a lot in the digital world, whether it's Crown and Bridge or now it's digital dentures. It really is all about the records, because what you give us as technicians really now is on you, because the software just interprets what the data is that you deliver. And the more accurate your records are, the more success you're going to have with your final denture. So really, two fundamental keys to ensure success. You have one, a final accurate impression, and then you have accurate interocclusal records, which includes the CR, the OVD, the canine position, gingival height, lip support, incisal edge, and the midline. So if you can capture all those things inside of a record, I can make you a digital denture that's going to go right in. And this is important because and you're going to say, well, this kind of applies to conventional dentures too. And I say, well, yeah, you're right, it really does. But in the digital world, it makes it that much more straightforward. So think about these 7 items that you have to have in your record and your final impressions, thinking that your record appointment is possibly a potential try-in visit, because depending on your record that you choose, whether you're using a wax rim, a duplicate denture, you're using some type of a tray system, it really is the more time you can spend on that up front and gathering that information. If you can confirm these things on the record appointment, you have a potential to appointment denture. And I'll explain, because I really do believe that. All right. So fundamentals. So we're talking about final impressions. Again, I don't really care how you do or make your final impressions, whether it's a custom tray, these are the Wagner trays, whether you use a Dr. Massad tray or you use a metal tray, you use an alginate tray, whatever, a custom tray with acrylic, as long as it records the information I need, as long as the borders are properly recorded, as long as it's not overextended, that the posterior palatal seal is captured. That is all I need. Okay. We want an accurate representation of the residual ridge. If we can capture that in a final impression, if you're a person that likes compound, use it. Again, whatever technique you are comfortable with, let's do that technique to the best of your ability, because that's going to have the best potential for you creating a reliable record. Again, all of these records now, again, we talked about the final impression being perfect. Now the record, if you choose a wax rim, you choose a duplicate denture, a Wagner try-in, whatever the record is you want to do, as long as it captures this information correctly, just as the final impression, you're going to be in a good place. All right. And the idea of, well, what do I choose? And I do apologize to repeat this again. Whatever you do best, whatever you feel comfortable with, let's do that. Okay. I'm not going to try to teach you something you're not comfortable with. I mean, we'd be glad to teach you how to make one of these records that are completely reliable, but the opportunity to have your try-in appointment as your final record appointment is a saving of chair time. So we look here, we've got a bunch of reference dentures. So I'm publishing a paper right now on reference dentures. It's actually for my PhD dissertation, where this is a viable record. Okay, I think this is a good way to capture somebody's aesthetics, all the information that needs to go into the interocclusal record, and your final impression all at once. It's proven to be an effective record, and it eliminates a visit, in my opinion. So does it take time to get used to doing something like this and doing it well? Yeah. Can you use any denture? Well, maybe, maybe not. Remember, this is just a reference. This is going to be something that the patient's used to living in. It's going to have the required bite. You just have to verify your midline, your incised ledge, your lip support, your horizontal plane of occlusion. Make sure you have that light body wash in there. You're not offsetting vertical at all. You're going to have that patient go right back into their acquired bite, their CO, and you're going to have a great record where most people are living. We could go to the point of like establishing CR, and do people really live in CR? No. Do they live somewhere close to CR? Yes. But their acquired bite really is, it's usually just a little bit different than CR, than pure CR. So this record I like, and I would consider using that as an existing denture. We did a pilot study with a major DSO with almost 100 offices, where we showed that they could bring in a patient with a decent existing denture, do a wash in it, make a new occlusal bite, verify the aesthetics, make any changes you need. If you need to change a midline from one side to the other or raise an incised ledge, you could do that. You indicate that in the software. You can make a really good two-appointment denture. We'd scan this on the CBCT under the model scan protocol, and you could throw it in your digital denture software, or you have to convert it from a DICOM to a STL, and you're off to the races. You're designing a digital denture in 30 minutes. It's a beautiful thing. So this technique works. You can do the same thing with a wax rim. You could do the same thing with a duplicate denture. With a try-in, you could do that. You could take a try-in, a wax try-in with a final wash in it, and do the same thing. You scan this, and that becomes your record. So it's all about the information in the record. If you can capture the CR, the OVD, the midline, the incised ledge, your lip support, your gingival height, your canine position, and your horizontal plane of occlusion in that record, you can make a two-appointment denture. If you want it to be three, that's fine. We can do a try-in. I'll print you a try-in all day long, and that's possible. All right, enough of that. There are other record making devices. So you have these tray devices, which are like the centric tray from Ivoclar, the Avident AMD. You've got the Denka tray. You've got the BDS centric tray as well. These all put somebody in theoretical CR at a vertical, and they all work, but they're not the easiest technique-wise. So you really need to understand the denture principles to understand what you're trying to capture. In the early days of Evident, we thought that the AMD was going to be some magic record-making device, and we threw it in the hands of many, many people, and many, many people failed at it. So some people made it sing, but a lot of people made it fail. But in the right hands, this can be a very effective tool. But I would call it an advanced tool because they're using things like Gothic arch tracings. I don't think they've taught Gothic arch tracing in schools for 30 years. So those are types of principles you have to understand to use these devices. But it's great for somebody who's completely edentulous that doesn't have an existing denture to start with. All right. So data acquisition. So we have our record. What are we going to do with it? We got to bring it into the digital world. So we have to scan it. You can use your Trios, your de jour intraoral scanner. It doesn't matter which one you use, as long as, again, it's an accurate scan. And all these handheld scanners now do very, very nice scans. They do a very good job of capturing a full capture scan. You would basically do 3 scans. You do a scan of your record. Really, all you need is the facial surface of the record, of the bite. Then you need an upper scan, a full contour scan of the upper impression, a full scan of the lower impression, or an opposing if it's just a single arch. and you're good to go. And you can get that just as accurate in a handheld scanner as you can with a desktop scanner. Okay. I don't really have one preference or the other. I personally like the handheld scanners because they're a lot, to me, they're a lot quicker. And the rate of scanning nowadays is so fast and it's so accurate. All right. Um, Intraoral scanning. Can we, there's a lot to be said about this. There's a lot of movement in this right now. The LaRusso, he's a clinician out of Italy. He wrote one of the first articles on intraoral scanning of edentulous ridges, and he and people like Dr. Brian Goodacre have published a lot on this, and I consider them experts in the field, and they're going to make it mainstream someday. Right now, you got to think of it as a non-loaded impression. It does a beautiful job of making an image of a mucostatic, okay, mucosa. So it's not loaded. Is that a problem? It can be. Okay. So you have to remember that it's not loaded, and you can't activate the muscles for the borders. So that's another problem that they're working on a solution for now as well. But if you're just looking to make a custom tray or get started, then absolutely use your intraoral scanner. Depending on the strategy, you can get a great result. So I'm in favor of this. It's coming. It's an up and coming technology, and just stay tuned. There's always something at the conferences. Last year there were two or three presentations at ACP and APS at those conferences regarding intraoral scanning for edentulous ridges. So it's coming. And the scanners, by the way, for color, one of the problems with it was originally was that the color contours on a palette were really tough to stitch. And so now with the color advances in the scanning, it makes these very much easier to scan and but to be more accurate. Facial analysis, facial imaging. This is a big deal now. So this is coming up, and where you can actually see eyes. If you can see eyeballs making a denture, in the lab, half your battles is solved. So this actually allows you to apply, um, a face to a digital denture design. Um, so you can see, what you're dealing with aesthetically. And that's really important. And you can even present this to the patient to get patient buy-in as part of the try-in after you have your case designed. All right. So what does a digital denture software need? And like I said earlier, most of the softwares nowadays are in parity. They all have, early on, they weren't. They lacked many things. If they have the ability to analyze models, to decide where teeth go, to use traditional landmarks and place teeth anatomically where they need to be, then that's where we need to be. And most of the softwares do that. They need to be able to produce a class 1, 2, or a 3 denture, complete tooth control. That's the single tooth movement. Be able to do a single arch against different types of occlusion. Be able to do immediate complete dentures. That's a whole nother subject of being able to extract and do a digital immediate denture. Have complete mold library choices, natural gingival contouring, to be able to export STL so you can do with it what you wish. You want to print it or you want to mill the teeth, you can do either or both. Okay. You need to have that freedom to be able to do a digital overdenture. That's another subject. And some of the softwares can be more affordable than others. Some are really expensive. You get into exocad and 3Ship, yeah, we know how much those cost. You get into the Blue Sky Bio or the BDS, the Baltic Denture System, and they're free. All you got to do is pay for the exports. So you could practice as much as you want. And I would recommend that if you're looking at doing a digital denture, definitely look at Blue Sky Bio, look at Baltic Denture System from Mertz, download the softwares, practice with them. You can practice with them, practice until you're sick of it and get good at it. When you're ready to do a final digital denture, you can export the files for, it's a very nominal amount, like $40, $30 an arch for an STL file. Throw it in your printer and print some teeth. What a great opportunity. So there is a difference in price depending on where you are. But if you already have exocad or 3Shape in your office, you're kind of already, half the battle's been beat. You just have to add the module. So the software programs range anywhere from, like I mentioned, the softwares that are completely dedicated to dentures and the ones that have modules. So this is in 3Shape. 3Shape's got a very powerful module for doing digital dentures, which everything else they do as well. but it allows you to identify landmarks, it allows you to do model analysis, place teeth anatomically where they should be, and you can use your reference as part of the setup. So that is a big deal. I wrote an article in JDT magazine a couple of years ago, which talks about the importance of model analysis and its approaches in the digital software. And if you don't understand model analysis as far as denture teeth setting go, this is a great primer article to kind of get your feet wet and kind of remind you of what you probably learned in dental school about the importance of where teeth should be and how dental softwares are intuitive and based on your landmarks, because you still have to choose the same landmarks as you do when you're setting up a set of teeth in the lab by hand with wax. You have to know where your retromolar pads are. You have to know where your incisive papilla is. You have to know where the apex are. You have to know where your pound triangle is. You have to know these landmarks to be able to create a digital denture. So this article really brings that home. And one of the things I mentioned there is the one-click denture. If you notice there at this last page over here, this last slide, if you can see this, the goal is for at least people like folks like 3Shape, they've got the one-click crown. We're coming to a one-click denture. So if you're worried about having a set denture teeth, well, the day is going to come when you have a one-click denture. So you've got, okay, let me get past all this here. Okay, so the one click or now the copy denture with 3Shape. So 3Shape's got a beautiful module, and also exocad's doing it now, where you can actually take a denture, an existing denture. So this kind of goes to, what do I do if I come in and I want an exact copy of my denture? If the patient says that, well, you can do that now. You can bring that into 3Shape, and you can literally scan the denture. It does a Boolean extraction. It removes the teeth. It creates two separate files for you now to mill or print the base and mill or print the teeth, and you can bond those together. And you can literally make a copy denture. And that was unheard of even 6 years ago. This is a totally new technology. It's probably about 2 or 3 years old, but it's taken the industry by storm because it makes life so much easier for making digital dentures. It's a great opportunity to be able to have a patient's existing teeth. You could even put the original occlusion into the denture if you wanted to. We're doing digital dentures and we're trying to improve them, as far as making the occlusion better, improve the aesthetics when we make one. But if you had to recreate it as such, you could do it. All right, and that's what your final looks like. So these are a couple of cases that I did with another one of my mentors, Dr. Tony Newmeyer from UAB. We did a couple of proof of concept cases, and she and I did the first Avident immediate denture together back in 2012 or 13. So we've been working on these for a long time, and I would consider her one of the best clinicians as far as making a good interocclusal record. And it shows here. She is the queen of 2 appointment dentures because she can make a record. She can give it to me. I can create a digital denture for her, and she can insert it on the next appointment with very few adjustments, if none at all. So these are legitimate cases. This was a single arch case that we did through. This was a carbon printed denture and 3Shape design, and she made the record. We did the denture, and she inserted it after the second appointment, and it had 0 adjustments. Okay, and that's the final denture there, and it looks beautiful in the man's mouth. All right, so the second one we did was with Ivoclar, and she did this one as a single arch as well, and again it went in 2 visits with minimal adjustments, so it can be done. All right, and this just shows a couple of different softwares. I'm going to buzz through these slides in a matter of time here, as a matter of time savings. But they all talk about the same thing. They really just reiterating the fact that I can design a denture in a software according to the traditional principles of denture design, and that's that whole idea of model analysis and setting teeth. The softwares need to do that, and they do that. So this is the Dentka software, another free program. If you want to go in and learn how to set teeth for free, you can download the software and learn how to design digital and export, pay for an export file if you want to. All right. So the Baltic Denture System is another one that's free. Again, you see here where the reference, you can see my mouse, the reference is superimposed with the setup. Again, we're doing the model analysis, and all of these softwares do virtually the same thing. They're great, dedicated softwares. And there, well, this is Dr. Israel Finger from University or LSU, Louisiana State, prosthodontist, good friend of mine that again, a 2 appointment denture, great technician or great clinician, and showing that we can actually make an initial record and come to a. All right. Avident is another great software, but you can't use that one for free. So the systems, we understand what they are. Do you want one that's dedicated? Do you want to add on to one of your exocads or 3Shapes? Yes, you can. They're all going to get you pretty much to the same point. I think and just to bring it home, if you want to learn for free. If you want to get into this with the free softwares, okay? That's the message here, because it's really all about how much you want to put into this as far as money goes. All right, let's talk about materials. Let's spend the last 10 minutes about materials. Is it milled? Do I go milled monolithic? Is it printed? Is it milled and printed? Combination of any of these. We can do these in different ways. And do they all make a digital denture? Yes. Is one better than the other? Yes. And we're going to talk about that right now. The accuracy in digital dentures is definitely there, because now we're taking directly from an impression. We don't have the generations of distortion in acrylic processing, in stone changes in shrinkages. We are getting right from the source to the final product. So it's 1-to-1 for the most part, okay, is what your records are. You have the aesthetic differences. Does milled material or printed material look as good as a hand um, um, toned and detailed conventionally made denture? No. I guess the word stained, as I was looking, internally stained denture is what I was looking for. No, probably not. It's not going to be as pretty. Does it look good does it look as good as denture teeth? Nice, beautiful molds that you can buy for, $60 a card? No. But they're going to look pretty good. Okay. Are they going to be good enough? Well, maybe. Depends on what you're planning for here. Again, the aesthetic differences are a big difference. There is a difference in bond strength between the materials, depending on if you're printing or you're bonding teeth. The color stability, the staining, the stainability of these are different depending on what you're doing, whether you're printing or you're milling, and we need to understand these things. So the accuracy is pretty much settled science now. We know that through several studies that have been published, many by Dr. Brian Goodacre, that the ability to create a hyper accurate denture digitally is the way to go. You reduce the chance for any distortion through shrinkage or any other errors in processing. And that's not to say that a printed denture can't be inaccurate. Is if you don't post process the printed denture, I'm going to talk briefly about that at the end. If you don't post process it correctly, you could create distortion as well. So this isn't always true, but all else being equal, the digital denture is more accurate. And you can see the difference here between, the more homogeneous look on the right is what you're looking for when you do these registrations. So it's much more accurate on the digital side. And again, we show that here. The ones on the bottom are pretty much 1-to-1, where you see the blue and red on the top. Those are distortions that you get when you process as opposed to going digital. As I mentioned also, when you print, printing is not the easiest thing in the world. It can be if you know what you're doing, but in dentures, depending on how you set it up on the platform, the build platform, it could create some distortion. So understand when you go to print a denture, the appropriate angle to create your arches and your teeth on the build table, because that's very important. Polishability, we talk about the aesthetics. Now we know that a conventional denture, the one that's on the left here, this left column, that it's going to polish up really nice because it's usually pretty dense. Now there are different levels of manufacturing conventionally. You got the poured dentures, the POUR dentures, not POOR dentures. Some of them are synonymous. because they have a lot of porosity in them. But if you press back a conventional denture, or you inject it like an IvaCap or an IvaBase, you can get a really, really good, dense, polishable denture that's going to be very, very nice. Um, the same with milling. So the milling, you're basically dealing with a pre-polymerized puck, and you are going to be, it's something that's highly dense, very micro porosity free, and something that's going to look really aesthetic. The printed material, on the other hand, it's going to be porous, and it's still porous. Okay, and that's a problem. So you got to think about ways to prevent staining, and a lot of that porosity, caused weakness early on. The flexural strengths of these materials, of the printed materials, are quite different than the traditional materials. They have been, but they're becoming better. If you look at what is termed a high quality, high impact acrylic, you're looking at something that is that meets the high impact standard, and most of that only comes through either, or sorry, my thingy's going on there. Either a press pack, or a high impact conventional process material, or a disc, okay, that's been press packed, and you have the lack of porosity, you have the hypoallergenic effect of a milled, or a processed versus a printed, and which makes it a lot more advantageous to the patient. So options you've got milled bases, you have milled teeth, you have carded teeth, you have printed bases, you have printed teeth. You have all these different options. What am I going to do? Um, when you're talking about printed, some of the disadvantages may be that there are no fibers. You don't get realistic fibers in the tissue fibers that you would normally get in a conventionally processed denture. Some are very translucent. Some are very opaque. The shade accuracy varies depending on the liquid, and some are very, very, very over opaque. And you're limited to shades, on accuracy, because you can't stain these. You can stain them externally, extrinsically, but I would caution against that, because those stains usually wear off. The ability to polish they're getting better. Early, the cheaper, non high impact denture based resins that print aren't as easy to polish as, say, a milled base. It's just the nature of the material. But if you look at the strengths, if you go across the top here, we've got the different printed. Well, if you look at the standard, you've got 65 megapixels for the ISO standard for high impact for flexural strength. And you'll go across here, you've got kind of the standard that everybody uses, the NextDent printed base. That's around 85, so it's good. You got loose tone print. You've got Flexera, which is very strong. You've got Trusana, which is even stronger yet by almost double. And now you've got Stratasys, which is going to be publishing some really, really strong numbers in the near future that are going to be way above anything else that anybody else is seeing, just like their flexural modulus numbers are way above everybody else's. Their overall strength is going to be pretty much equal to most of the better high impact acrylics on the market. So there's a range. If as far as traditional printed materials right now, I'm liking the Flexera and the Trusana, because those base materials are very strong. They're well over the high impact criteria, and they're very, they're not gonna break. But do they have porosity in them? Yes, they do. So that's something you got to consider. All right, let's talk about the stainability. So one note about stainability is that the printed dentures do stain. I've seen printed dentures come back in a week stained with coffee, tea, wine, because they're porous. So that's something to consider. You can stain them extrinsically and seal them with a sealer, which is kind of a temporary fix, but you got to remember that it's something that will wear off. All right. Um, Here we go. Let's talk about mill discs really quick, because we're approaching the end of our time here. So mill discs, if you were to put me on the spot right now, I'd say the digital denture that is the highest quality is still a milled digital denture, whether it's an Avident, an Ivoclar, a BDS denture, something that's milled from a pre-polymerized puck that has no shrinkage, that has no porosity, is going to be your better choice. Okay, so we'll just start the conversation there. But really, You have the opportunity to take a milled base, you can bond teeth in them to them. So like the bionic um, option from Vita, you can take Vita teeth, beautiful Vita teeth, and bond them into a base. You've got now the inaccuracy possibility of bonding a tooth into a base, which is a distinct possibility if you don't do the correct, perform the correct bonding procedure. You could introduce occlusal differences, but for the most part, you're going to get a very aesthetic look on the teeth with a really pretty milled base. Because again, with the milled base, you have the fibers and you have more shade choices. Um, you have for example, with carbon, okay, with carbon and Dentsply Sirona, you've got their IPN teeth, their digital teeth now, which they redesigned the necks of these so you have less air for bonding, but with the Lucitone IPN tooth material and the IP or the Lucitone base print base, you can come out with a pretty decent denture. Does the Lucitone base rank up to some of the Trusana and the Flexera numbers? No, they're not going to be as strong, but they're still going to be a very probably one of the most aesthetic printed dentures you can get. Monolithic. Monolithic, as I mentioned, milled. Your milled monolithic denture is probably the most um, aesthetic and strongest digital denture on the market. But that means more time and effort. You have to mill something. But a monolithic denture means just that. So you've got the tooth and the base are one. There's no tooth popping out of this. This is one piece of material. This is only so with the Ivoclar Evotion system, the Avident digital denture, the XCL1 and XCL2 dentures, and the Baltic denture system. These are the only three systems that offer a true monolithic system or offering. So if you were to ask me what is the very best digital denture aesthetically and strength-wise possible, it would be one of these. I like the printed dentures for different purposes, and there are people doing printed dentures for permanent dentures still, but these are going to be better now with what the materials are available today. All right, different options for printing resins you have. It's changing daily with how good these materials are, and the technology is changing as well. So these are all regular print, as you would, traditional printing resins, as you would call it, and they're all very good resins. They just kind of all are equal in the amount of flexural strength and strength that they provide to the patient. Not bad, but they're just kind of all on par. And I would say choose your system based on the material, because if you want a strong aesthetic digital denture, make sure that you choose the materials that's going to provide you that. Because if you've got an existing printer and you just settle for whatever print base they're able to use, then you might not be happy with the result you get. So look at the materials and what you want to accomplish, and then choose your system based on that. Again, we like the Lucitone digital material is really good. It's come out now, and you can use it in systems other than carbon. You can use it with the Asiga printer, and it's becoming more versatile. So it's out there. You got the Flexera, which is a very strong material. They've owned the market for strength for a few years now. There are some materials coming out that are putting them up for a little fight now, but they are very strong materials, well above, as you can see here, the strength requirements for ISO. So again, if you wanted to run over that denture, you could probably do that with one of these dentures. And again, we've got Trusana, which are even above those. And you have the new materials from, the new nano ceramic materials as far as tooth materials go from Sprint Ray. These are great materials. There's a lot of research being done on these, and these are up and coming. Now, multicolored, this is the big thing that's come out. So this is probably the most significant change. This is the big game changer in the last couple of years, is to be able to do full color. So Stratasys, their TrueDent process, it's inkjet instead of DLP. Okay, it's not, they're not photopolymerizing layer by layer. This is actually sprinkling in the colors as it needs to be, and it's producing a monolithic, full color, full aesthetic denture. They can print in, they can build in fibers to these, they can build in mamelons to the teeth. It's a truly revolutionary process. It comes with, it's not cheap. The machines are pretty pricey, but the technology is here now where you can do full color printing And this technology is being copied by two or three other companies, which are going to be on the market, or if not already on the market right now, in the very, very near future. So this is up and coming. So jet printing is kind of where it's going right now. DLP printing and those other types of printing are still going to be around. But this is kind of where it's going because this gives you the flexibility of really doing internal staining and internal characterization that you couldn't do before. So big, big game changer. Um, all right. So let's finish up here, just talking about a few different systems here. We've got you've got this just I'm just giving you a few examples here. This is DMG. They've got some very, very efficient systems that you can use. You've got the big names like Rapid Shape, Form Labs, Desktop Health, Sprint Ray, Carbon. Those are the ones you're probably familiar with. They all do a very, very good job. Just again, depends on the materials you want to use. Um, Nextdent, Asiga, if you want an open system, these are your options for open systems where you're not tied into a specific liquid, because a lot of these systems are closed. The post processing is very important. I could actually spend another hour on this. The post processing is so important that you do it correctly per the manufacturer's recommendations, because if you do this wrong, you could create distortion, you could create colored problems, you could really sell yourself short on a digital denture. So the post processing, the light curing, the washing is very important. What you wash it, how you wash it, how long you wash it, how long you cure it is very, very important. So a word of caution, make sure you follow the recommended techniques and equipment for post processing for whichever equipment you purchase, whichever system you want to go to. The same thing goes here. You have the Desktop Health, you got Nextent, they have their own machines as well. All right. So milling is the last thing we're going to talk about. Milling, if you have an existing mill in your office and if you're milling anything else, you can apply that technology to digital dentures. You can buy a fixture that'll take a disc. But again, getting into milling is very expensive. The mills are not cheap and it takes a long time. So efficiency is not really the name of the game when you're talking about milling digital dentures. It is superior, but if you can have your lab do it, let them do it, and benefit that way. But if you already have a mill, you go for it. I mean, I would say definitely get into milling consider milling, because you can mill overnight. They have multiple disc changers where you could set it up and you could run 2 or 3 dentures overnight and come back in the morning and they're done. So something to consider. And there are several mills on the market that are very have a lot of respect. So, and this is the last thing I want to talk about really quick. There is automatic polishing now. So this is the first auto finisher. So the days of not having to sit there and grind and polish a denture are kind of past, because this is basically like a ball finisher where you can throw it in there and let it rotate and it'll come out nice and finished and beautiful, your final denture. So make the transition. I know we had to buzz through a lot of that. This is usually a little bit longer presentation, but we wanted to keep this to about an hour. But make the transition if you want it, and understand that it is possible. Just take what you know. If you don't have the principles in your head, if you don't remember them, go to a place where you can get a refresher course on basic denture principles, and bring those to the table, and create a digital denture, because really, making that transition is easy. Um, there's an article I wrote in Focus magazine. This is the Southern Dental Association. It's in Florida. Um, they on how easy it is to make that transition. So if you want that, we can provide you a copy of that, but it's a kind of a step-by-step guide of how to get into digital dentures. So with that, I would like to say thank you.